Welcome. It's been a real gift to have this practice every day. I really look forward to sharing a practice, to doing it in the mornings with all of you, and hopefully getting up in time so that we can practice together. So hope you've been finding it meaningful. If you're new, we've been cultivating a practice together. So I record a daily morning practice. In our community, you can get it every day. And the idea is that we take these teachings and we apply them in our lives. We really develop a practice and establish this long-term habit and conditioning to really transform ourselves. And so trying to have a real engaged practice. And then we have our teachings on Wednesday, and then once a month we'll have a half-day retreat. Next one will be July 28th. And so we take a little time and dive a little deeper. So we are using the book, How to Practice by His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. And I think I'm going to do something different today. I'm going to actually just bring it up on the screen so we can all read along. And this is where we are at. Refraining from harm. So we've already laid the groundwork. We've looked at the truth of suffering, the causes of suffering, its cessation. Now we're into this path. How do we undo this mess? How do we engage in a path that unravels the confusion? How do we liberate ourselves? How do we end this suffering? So as Holiness had pointed out, the Noble Eightfold Path is really focused on these three higher trainings. I'll use this word morality. So morality, concentration, this mental stability we acquire through meditation, and wisdom being the ultimate key that unlocks the door. But it's really the combination of these three that work together for us to find this liberation. And independently, it's not going to happen. And foundationally, everything is about the morality. And so this is what we've been doing the last few weeks, is having a daily practice, cultivating the wholesome actions of body, speech, and mind, and doing our best to reduce or eliminate the unwholesome activities that we've engaged in, to create the conditions, the merit, the good karma, so we can ripen our minds, create these positive conditions and highest potentials within ourselves, awaken them. And so we're here at this section, refraining from harm. Let me just take a sip of water here. And I'd like to just read this little section because it'll take us right up to the practice we've been doing. But I think you may find it quite inspiring. I certainly did. So Buddhists take a vow of morality in the context of first taking refuge in the Buddha, in the states of realization, and in the spiritual community. Refuge is the foundation for the practice of morality. Buddha teaches us how to find refuge from suffering and limitation, but the chief refuge or source of protection is found in the states of realization achieved through practicing morality, concentrated meditation, and wisdom. So those are the three higher trainings: morality, concentrated meditation, wisdom, sometimes just called ethics, concentration, wisdom. These are the Noble Eightfold Path, fit into these three categories. So this is the chief source of protection, is found in these states of realization, right? We've achieved through practicing these three higher trainings. Buddhist scriptures recommend that you hide your good qualities and achievements like a lamp inside a vessel. You should not advertise them unless there's a great purpose in doing so. It is considered a minor infraction of a monastic's vow if he or she achieves the state of liberation and says to someone else, I have attained liberation. This being the case, it is difficult to determine what stage of inner experience another person has achieved. I have had the opportunity to meet several people who have attained extraordinary spiritual development. There was a not very scholarly monk from Namgyal Monastery, that's His Holiness's monastery, who came out of Tibet in India around 1980. Since we knew each other, we were casually chatting one day. He told me that while he was in a Chinese communist gulag for almost 18 years, he faced danger on a few occasions. It's pretty humble, right? I'm there for 18 years. I faced danger on a few occasions. This is where they torture you and abuse you. Really horrific. I faced danger on a few occasions. I thought he was referring to a threat to his own life. But when I asked, what danger? He answered, losing compassion towards the Chinese. He considered this to be the danger. Now, most of us would feel proud to tell others about how angry we got as if we were some kind of hero. So what a different mind to understand karma, to understand the nature of confusion and the importance of compassion, the importance of transforming ourselves, to be able to understand that the real danger is really having anger, and instead of understanding that these people who are torturing me or abusing me are creating mounds of horrific karma for themselves and others, and to understand that they're not doing it with any clarity of mind. To be able to endure that, understand the importance of compassion, pretty amazing. So there's so many men. So he's sharing about some people he's met with extraordinary spiritual attainment. A Lama from Drukpa Kagyu tradition and I were very close. We met frequently and always used to joke, teasing each other back and forth. On one occasion, I asked him about his spiritual experience. He told me that when he was young, he was staying with his Lama, who had him perform the preliminary practice of making 100,000 prostrations to the Buddha, the doctrine in the spiritual community. That's the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the three jewels of refuge. So a very common preliminary practice of doing 100,000 prostrations can take a long time. I call it a ninja practice. Early in the morning and late in the evening, he had to make prostrations on a low platform the length of his body. His Lama was meditating in the dark in the next room. So to trick him into thinking he was making his prostrations, he would tap with his knuckles on the prostration platform. So they just sharing these little things they did. Years later, after his Lama passed away, he was taking a meditation retreat in a cave, during which he recalled his Lama's great kindness over the years of training him, and he wept and wept. He almost fainted, but then experienced the clear light, which he continuously practiced. So that's this, we went through those stages of what happens when the body dissolves, and those stages, and you reach the clear light level of consciousness. So he would practice this, and so he would experience it, and then he would, keep practicing it and staying in that, his ability to tap in there. Subsequently, after successful meditations, he occasionally would remember past lives in vivid reflections before him. So he attained that thing of just tapping into his past lives, his continuity of consciousness. These first-hand stories have inspired me. There are definitely practitioners today moving in the direction of Buddhahood. Meeting these people increases our inspiration and determination, and through them, the teaching becomes alive. In this way, the spiritual community provides models for practitioners to look up to, which can help them lead us to refuge. So he's noting two things. One is, typically anyone who's enlightened is not going to tell you they are, and you're never going to really know their spiritual attainment. But occasionally, under the right circumstances, the right occasion, you may learn, about some of the direct experience of some pretty advanced practitioners. It can be truly inspiring. These three, the Buddha, the states of realization, and the doctrines that teach them. So now he's expanding the Dharma. So these three, the Buddha, the states of realization, the doctrines that teach them, that's the Dharma. So Dharma is not limited to, the texts and these teachings. It's the level of realization we achieve through them. And the spiritual community, Sangha, are factors outside yourself that have greater capacity to end suffering than you presently do. However, a Buddhist is not asking them to. So we take refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So he's saying they have a far greater capacity to be helpful than we do currently. But we don't directly ask them to grant happiness. Rather, happiness comes from putting the doctrine into practice. So it's something we need to do. The Buddha teaches the actual refuge, how to practice the doctrine, but the main responsibility lies in your own implementation. To create the foundation for an eventual spiritual state devoid of suffering and limitation, we need to engage in the following practice. Identify the 10 non-virtues, identify the 10 virtues, and abandon the former and adopt the latter. So that's what we've been doing, right? That's been our practice for the last few weeks. And he's making a very important point. To create the foundation for an eventual spiritual state devoid of suffering and limitation, we need to engage in the following practice. So this has been our practice. This is how we lay the foundation. This is the ground of all spiritual growth. When he's sharing stories about these practitioners and their incredible development, all of which was based on these practices and on creating a foundation of virtue. So this needs to be just part of our DNA. It needs to be part of our way of being. And, we've got a little bit of time, hopefully, engaging in this practice every day. So we really want to identify these non-virtues. This is what we're avoiding. We need to know them. We need to feel in our body what's happening when they arise, when we engage in them. And we also need to understand what gives rise to them. So we'll do this with mindfulness. But also cultivate the 10 virtuous activities. And then see if we can't develop that to be habitual, able to just be the natural way that we think and act and engage in life. So abandon the former, the non-virtues, adopt the latter. The fourth piece that we've included here is purification. So every night we have this opportunity to purify the negativities that we've cultivated. So that Vajrasattva practice is included in our daily practice. So We need to stop doing the non-virtuous, cultivate the virtuous, purify the negativities. And in order to do any of this is going to require an awareness of what we're doing, an awareness of these virtues, an awareness of what we're doing. And this is called mindfulness. The ability to be present when mindfulness arises and notes beneficial and unbeneficial, wholesome, unwholesome, fault and faultless. So it arises and we can abandon the unwholesome, cultivate the wholesome. I'm just going to pause there. I'll take this down for a moment and just check in and see if anyone has any comments or questions, either regarding their practice or their practice this week or anything coming up. So if you'd like to ask a question or anything, you can. So button to raise your hand, I'll see it pop up. It hasn't happened yet. So at any time, if you'd like to ask a question or share something about the practice, feel free to. Oh, we got a hand. Okay. Okay. Rachel.
Hi, hear me?
Hi. Yep.
Hey. Thank you for reading that. That was a really inspiring passage. And I just have a question about the beginning, just some clarification on refraining from sharing our good qualities, or I guess being cautious around that.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that he's specifically referring to not like gloating about like high realizations, but how do we put that into practice with like where we are right now, which is for me at least very far from having those high spiritual realizations, like I guess in context of cultivating like a healthy sense of self.
Right. So when we're talking about a healthy sense of self, and we want to and need to, actually, we really need to be aware of our good qualities. We need to be aware of our wholesome activities. We need to be really aware of what we're doing right. And in our culture, it's funny because our culture does kind of promote, people showing off what they got, and certificates and awards and statues, and but at the same time, our culture also, has a sense that you don't brag about yourself. It's an interesting dichotomy there. Interesting. So the question is here then, we do need to share our qualities of growth and improvement, but what's the motivation? So if I'm, working with others like we are here in a community, in a path, and we're needing some clarity about our growth, or we're, have done something that we feel pretty good about, want to check in on that, then it's really meaningful. And as a matter of fact, I just came from working with a group of people in treatment, and my assignment to them is to note all the good things they're doing, right? I talked a bit about that with us last week. Now, our minds often will focus on what we're not doing well, and we don't do very good with what we are doing well. So we need to note it. We need to synthesize the sensation of joy, of pleasure, with the good actions that we're doing. Just really sit with that, acknowledge it, feel good about what you did, or feel good about not doing something that's unwholesome, and allow that, because that's how we really start to transform. But at the same time, if I'm bragging about what I'm doing and how far I've come and all of that, and then what I'm really doing is reifying myself. I'm creating more obstacles in my life, and then then I'm also setting myself up for comparison, and then I'm reinforcing this sense of self in an unhealthy way. And so understanding that when there's times to really talk about some of these things that achieve that we feel pretty good about, but what's my motivation is going to be key. And am I sharing it to so everybody know how wonderful I am, or am I sharing because it could be helpful? And so in both of the cases as Holiness talked about, which highly realize, there's some point to it, but they're not bragging. So in our own sense, we need a healthy sense of self. And as we find the ability to share what we've done well in ways that are, on a path in a community supporting virtuous action, we get a sense of self. And as we get stronger with that, at some point, we don't even need to share it, but that comes later. That comes later. At some point, we have such a sense of self that's healthy and well that, we don't need to let everyone know, how good we are, how many people we've helped. So, people can get stuck in that, and then people brag about their empowerments and how many days they've meditated and, and all that. Whereas it might be relevant just to, share with someone, a friend, and you're on the path. And I really made a commitment to meditate, and I've made it a year. And it's really helped me and helped me change my life. That's very different than, posting on Facebook 385 days. So is that helpful for addressing that?
Yes, very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, looks like Michelle has a question here. All right. And see if I can push the right button.
Okay.
Yep, Michelle, you're in.
Okay. So, because of this humble act.
Oops. Sorry. Let me bring you back in there. I was trying to put your hand down and took you out of the room. Now you're back in.
Okay. Because of this humble attitude that teachers and practitioners have, then how do you try to assess, whether or not a teacher is a true teacher or a relevant teacher for where you're at, because they can't announce their realizations or accomplishments and things. And then further, like, to follow that up, is it because we're in a diluted state and our ego gets in our way all the time? Is it like part of the path, and through a more subtle understanding, then this becomes apparent and you can rely on yourself to make that determination?
So engaging a teacher, there's lots of text about that. There's criteria. And it comes from observing the teacher and to assess. And the Tisha's verses on mind training, which Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo teaches, you can find a lot of teachings with her on that, really incredible. The highest city, the highest city is, that can be achieved is freedom from mental affliction. So in other words, not that they can fly in the air, they can read your mind. Those types of cities are pretty irrelevant. It's, have you tamed your mind? Are they ethical? Do they still suffer from, pride and ego, a sense of self? Do they still, get caught up in mental afflicted states? And so this greatest city is really, teachers. And you'll notice by their demeanor, by how they treat people, by their own activities. You observe them, and you observe them over time. Have they tamed their mind? And so I often, from my perspective, what I often look at is really try to assess. When I watch a teacher, because they can be very charismatic and they can have powers and different things. But we also see that can lead to a lot of problems, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of teachers that have unethical behavior and have caused quite a bit of damage in their communities. So it's really then not about the powers, it's about their ethics, it's about their composure, it's about are they able to teach in a way that speaks to you, that's helpful to your mind. And one of the things that Jitsuma talks about is, you can also observe their students, and the quality of the atmosphere, the acceptance that they have, and so forth. So it is more subtle. It is much more of, we don't interview and go, hey, I'm checking out teachers, so what's your development? Can you see my mind? Can you tell me, it's much more of, do those teachings speak to you? Do they help ripen your mind? Is this person ethical? Are these teachings resonating with, some of the difficulties that you're having? And a teacher is not there to make you feel good. Venerable Tenzin Darcy is really good about pointing that out. Sometimes the teacher is there to, wake you up. So, well, they're always there to wake you up, but sometimes, to have you, feel some discomfort. So finding teachers that are going to help you make progress, and there's a karma, that's created. There's this, we're going to find some ability to, wow, this is, kind of, there's an intuitive piece, but an intuitive piece that needs to be discerning and watching, what are these ethics? And am I following someone who's not, adhering to the things he's teaching, right, or she's teaching? Because we have incredible female teachers right now. So wonderful, so wonderful. And so it is more subtle. It's observing. To give you an example, like Alan Wallace, who's one of my teachers. After I picked up a book of his, and my teacher had transitioned, and I was reading, it just spoke to me. It just spoke to me. I was like, well, I'm going to get to know this person. I went and had a meeting, and I did retreat, and then I observed him for 5 years. So I attended retreats. I did teachings of his. I actually received some empowerment, things of that nature. But it took 5 years. In 5 years, I formally asked him to be a teacher, and so it was not something I rushed into. And but I saw his ethics, his values, and the consistency with which he taught. And so it's like that for me, is to notice, and that is for someone, these sort of spiritual guides. We can have teachers and receive teachings from lots of people, and see them as teachers, and they don't need all of those 10 qualities. But for me, a number one quality is ethics, and so they need to know more than you. I mean, this sort of the base 5 is, it's helpful to have a teacher who knows more than you. A teacher who has some experience with emptiness, and whether they really understand it or have experienced it to some degree intellectually, or hopefully directly, and that they don't tire of teaching, that they are ethical, that they've tamed their mind in terms of that. So these are these baseline things that are really important when seeking a teacher. And but they're not going to, but every now and then they may let you know your mind. So Geshe Gyatso, my teacher, you guys, you people, you humans, may have seen the article that we posted around his transition, and that, well, actually, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm going to comment on this other student who first met Geshe Gelsen, and he was asking him for advice about his practices. And so my teacher, Geshe Gelsen, he could see your mind. He's super humble. He would never admit it. Never, you would never know it and all that. But on this one occasion, this person I know met him many years ago and was asking this advice around practice and things you should do. And Geshe gave him all the advice, gave things, and he's walking out the door, and Geshe said, "Oh, one more thing." And he said, "Yeah, what's that?" He said, "You need to stop, messing around with that other woman, because he's married." And the guy's like, "What?" And so he showed that he did show that he had this quality in that moment for a very specific reason, and it woke this man up, and he had been cheating, and that wasn't going to help him on his practice, but it also brought this incredible faith in. And anyway, that man went on to be a monk. He's been a monk for, I don't know, over 20 years now, and an incredible practitioner in a retreat. And so there are times where they'll show you, something, and and just demonstrate for a purpose, though, never to show off. So is that helpful? You're muted, so. Okay, I don't hear you, but so I hope it was helpful. I'll put you back here. Okay. So these are important topics. It's such a good question, Michelle. Is when we're attending teachings or we're receiving teachings, there's these days, there's a lot of people hanging up a sign saying they're a Dharma teacher, and so it's very important to be thoughtful about where we receive them and observe their qualities, and make sure that if anything's uncomfortable or just didn't seem right, that we be aware of that. Too many times people follow, and we're talking about teachers, not people like me. We're talking about these teachers who are have attained certain levels, and they're people are taught to sort of go blindly, and it must be me, I don't see it, they're acting in this way to teach me something, and people go against their own real sort of good judgment sometimes, and that's how there's a lot of damage. So if something doesn't feel right, you need to acknowledge that, and we need to be responsible and not blame a teacher if we're putting ourselves in situations that aren't very healthy. Okay, you got your hand up one more time. We'll do a quickie here, so you can finish that.
So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so if a teacher like you, for instance, or you're listening to Venerable Tenzin, and they present you a link, to some other teacher's topic on something, or suggest something, then you're sort of guided on your path, and you still use your discernment, but you don't fall into the trap of being like a spiritual dabbler or something. Like, how do you, maintain your course, but still be receptive to growth and expansion of your path?
Okay, I think I get what you're going with here. So let me just put that back. Yeah, so I think in my, I'll just give my perspective. I'm not much of a teacher, so keep that in mind. That good teachers, quality teachers, or teachers, they're going to encourage you to explore. You can have lots of teachers, And so you're not, not dishonoring someone by having other teachers. I have a few heart teachers, and I have many other teachers, and so it's really, I think, encouraged in His Holiness to be very good about that, encouraged to explore and learn. And I do now spend quite a bit of time also learning from different lineages. I like to learn more about Theravada so I understand better and find some good teachers there. And within the Nyingma, which is what I've been experiencing more in my more recent years, and Gelugpa before that, that the invitation is to explore, and there's no you're not dishonoring or not being true to your main heart teachers. And once you have a heart teacher, they're your heart teacher, and but we can cultivate more. Once I had 3 root gurus. Or I was thinking about 3. I was talking to Latte Rinpoche, my ordination master. Is it okay if I have like more than one? He just laughed, Because of course it's okay, they're of this taste, and we're seeing them in these qualities. So for many years, I had these 3 that I would visualize as one, and then and many teachers. So because different teachers are able to offer some different perspectives and different voice, and I find myself quite mostly listening to Jetsuba Tenzin right now, and really finding her teachings just so speaking to me. But there's because of our own mental disposition, certain teachers are better suited for us, and so sometimes there's in different stages of our development, we might find someone teach us a different path. So in my own case, even with my Gelugpa and now Nyingma, they really complement each other. So it's totally okay to explore, especially if someone you value, has said, here's some teachings. Then they're generally, saying, I find these people ethical and worthwhile. And so I am very particular, we are very particular at our Dharma Center that when we post things in our community, and if we're posting, teachers and teachings, we feel pretty good about who they are, and encourage people, to go check it out. Well, let's bring us up to the hour here. Anyone else have a question as this has come up? Anyone else? Okay, quiet bunch. So on this topic, if you have not, so within the Lama teachings, the Gelugpa teachings, and I'm very familiar with, I'm sure they carry through with the other lineages. There's some criteria around, if you're seeking a teacher, these are these qualities. There's qualities of a student as well, and so these are to be cultivated, and so they're good to get to know. We don't have time to unpack them all right now, but the idea is that that we can go to any, we go to teachings, we don't know, but we go to teachings. But as we receive teachings, the Buddha is very clear about having a discerning mind. Test gold, right? You don't just take it, you test it. And just like a goldsmith tests gold, you test the Dharma, you test it. And so you engage in these practices with a wise and a discerning mind. And then, you may find some teachings from different traditions that help you in certain ways. It's great. Buddha Dharma doesn't have the monopoly on enlightenment, And so there's lots of wisdom and lots of traditions. You'll always hear me at the end when we dedicate to long life of all spiritual teachers of all spiritual traditions, but I always know who are authentically teaching the path of no more suffering. And there are many paths there. So we're finding one that works for us. But at the same time, we don't want to be too shopping around in the sense that I don't get on a path. I just go to another teaching, or I just go to this and I go to that. And if I keep doing that, you know, the analogy I use all the time, it's like digging 100 holes a foot deep. I don't really achieve much instead of digging one hole 100 foot deep and, you know, finding and just really engaging in a path. But I can be engaged in that path, and on that path with, you know, some guidance can also use teachings from other teachers that help me on that path. And so it is it's important to all along the line though, you know, to be aware of what am I bringing to these teachings and be discerning about the process, but having the good qualities of a student who applies the teachings and tests and does this transforming? Does this make a difference? So there are these qualities that we can look for, and this day and age, they say it's pretty hard to find people at 10, but if they have these 5, which I kind of listed earlier there, but this idea of them knowing more than you, that they're ethical, that they're helpful, you know. I mean, these are some pretty straightforward things. And one of the qualities, and again, pointed out by my teachers, does that teacher treat everyone the same? Or do they treat those that are more benefactors, you know, differently? And I think that's a pretty good sign for me. I like to notice that these teachers, you know, see the value in every being they engage with. You can see it so clearly in His Holiness, and you can see it so many. So there's really no need to settle for less. There's a lot of good ethical teachers. There's a lot of people I talk to these days who, you know, talk about, well, you know, but they've accomplished this and they're like this, and you know, I mean, everybody has their issues, right? And I think, no, not everybody has their issues. If you're a Lama on a path and you got issues, well, you know, probably I'll wait till you ripen up. And you know, there's a lot of really good quality teachers who don't have those issues, and you'll notice they're humble and so forth. So it's good to keep an eye out and you know, pay attention to things like that. But you know, don't be, you know, overly critical, looking for every little flaw. You know, just over time, a generalness to it, because then we could just get all judgmental and wait for, you know, the most perfect of everything. But you know, having some discernment, some wisdom, and but fundamentally, is this helping me transform myself? And are these teachings I can put into practice? And you know, are they helpful? So, all right. It looks like that brought us to our hour. And so I wanted to get to this point. I'm sorry, I'm going to bring this back up real quick. So you may have noticed for a few weeks we've been focusing on this, and we're going to continue to focus on this, because this is not, you know, it's not like, okay, I did that for a week, moving on. It is something that's foundational. It is the core of everything. And it needs to be something that's just embedded in our way of being. I put earlier, in our DNA, in our consciousness, in the way of being. And nothing to rush through. Nothing to rush through. These preliminaries, like, you know, he's practicing 100,000 prostrations. That's going to take a while. You know, some people do a couple of years to get those done. And so no big hurry to get to the next thing. It's really how does this become the foundation for my way of being? That happens. I had someone ask me the other day about, they're struggling, calling, we had some advice. We had a good talk, and at the end they're so what do I do? And so, the answer to that is, do these practices. Are you meditating in the morning? Are you setting your intention? Are you doing, so we don't do any of that. Then we get, in some struggles, and then we seek, answers, and then we're looking for an answer, and really the answer is about changing ourselves, and the way we change ourselves is through practice. So, and this is what's missing. It's so missing. It's just so missing. That people want the next blessing, the next teaching, the next epiphany, and then they go back to samsara, and the real answer is, that we establish these healthy habits, routines, and that we develop these virtuous qualities, avoid these non-virtuous ones, that we create the conditions that would help support us in eliminating our suffering. And that's all long-term. There's no, And so engage in these practices. So I encourage all of you, every day. We have the practice book that you can download, either in a little booklet form or to hand out, and you can do practices on your own. We've got the long practice, short practice. I record a practice every morning. We do it every morning together. There's a Vajrasattva practice in the evening where we can purify. And all of this is not long. The short morning practice usually takes around 35 minutes. The evening, that short Vajrasattva, a video of an amazing young nun doing that Vajrasattva practice. I don't think it's 10 minutes. And our dedication, but we need to be mindful throughout the day to check in. So that's the key, is to check in throughout the day and remember, here's a day that won't come again. What am I doing that's virtuous? What's not virtuous? And call them. You might want a cheat sheet, have those virtuous that ones, cheat sheet, pull it out, look at them, bring them to mind, let them be a part of your process. And we do this over and over, and then we more naturally speak in ways that bring people together. We more naturally engage in being helpful than having that just be our mantra, being skillful. So that's the way it works, and it's not glamorous, and but the beings that he was talking about, they got that way because they started this way, and that's the way it works. Yeah, people need to be part of our life. So I'm so glad we get to do this. All right, well, I went a little bit over. I apologize. All right, let's go ahead and dedicate. Let us dedicate the merit and wisdom that we've accumulated here today and throughout our lifetimes for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be free of suffering, find their liberation. May we be able to also dedicate our merit and wisdom to help us purify our own minds, help us engage in the wholesome and virtuous activities that support our path of awakening, so we can truly be a benefit to all sentient beings. Let us also dedicate our merit and wisdom to a long life of all spiritual teachers of all spiritual traditions who are authentically teaching a path of no more suffering. May they live long, may their teachings flourish, and may we add an additional dedication for a long life of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. May he live long, may his teachings and wisdom just permeate all beings.